Mao Mao, our ugly and flat-chested protagonist, somehow ends up getting sold to the emperor and becomes the greatest apothecary. This is her story. She gets asked to deliver some medicine to the verdigris brothel, and her father warns her to be careful of kidnappers. She agrees and heads into town, which is bustling like the 4th of July, but on downers. She soon arrives there, and Pyrene, a night worker, bursts her during a drug experiment and hugs her from behind. Granny interrupts with talk of the poor girl becoming a night worker, and she runs for her life. She easily gets sidetracked when she sees that good herb by the roadside, and soon enough gets kidnapped. In other news, Lady Lihua pushes out the prince from her tum-tum, and 3 months later, Mao Mao is working for them. She grumbles under her breath as she does the palace laundry. It turns out she ended up in the rear garden, the baby factory of the palace where no men are allowed. Feminists wouldn't know whether to love or hate this place. The only exceptions are eunuchs, which are men that have lost a part of their body. Won't explain it. Anyway, Mao Mao is just a servant who happens to be literate. Trust me, she's a celebrity for being able to read. The only reason she isn't a concubine is because she's flat and freckled, not the emperor's style. She just plans to do her 2 years on the low and get the hell out. A pitiful virgin eunuch named Jinshi causes a ruckus amongst the servants, and all the heirs born in the rear garden begin to fall ill and die. 2 separate events, mind you. Xiaolan, the rumor peddler, thinks it's a curse. She tells Mao Mao about the deaths and how the doctor has been spending more time with Lady Lihua, but the emperor has been playing favorites with Lady Jokuyo. After hearing the symptoms of Lady Lihua and her child, Mao Mao announces that curses are dumb. She can't help but wonder about the symptoms as she returns, and curiosity gets the best of her. Instead, she runs into a concubine showdown where Lihua slaps the wig off of Gyokuyo, blaming her for her son's condition. Jinshi gets summoned, but Mao Mao is busy tearing the physician apart before he arrives. She easily deduces the problem and crosses shoulders with Jinshi on her way out. The virgin has never seen such a flat-chested girl in his life, so he turns to take a second look. Barely a month later, Lady Lihua loses her son. As the rain hit the ground like it was mad at it, Lady Gyokuyo and Jinshi the virgin have a meeting. She shows him a message she'd gotten about the face powder being poison and not to let the baby touch it. She asks him to find who had written it, but Pretty Boy already had Mao Mao in mind. He summons her alongside some other servants, and while other girls are crushing, Mao Mao's first impression is that he's an arrogant woman. As she judges him, he writes that she should wait behind on a piece of paper and dismisses the others. Apparently, the virgin is smart too. Only Mao Mao could read amongst all the servants, and she discovers this too late. He grabs her shoulder and whispers into her ear. No, I don't know if he likes kids, but he tells her to quietly follow him. She swipes off his hand like he's a flea and continues to lie that she can't read. Soon enough, they arrive at Lady Jokuyo's room, and she thanks Mao Mao for saving her daughter's life. She tries to deny it, but Jinshi easily pulls out the piece of cloth she'd written on and connects the dots. Having no choice, she confesses that she had noticed the white powder from the prostitutes that used it and got sick at the brothel she grew up in. She then reveals that she was an apothecary. Jinshi and the concubine spend the next few minutes throwing blame on themselves, and Mao Mao interrupts to ask what they want from her. Lady Gyokuyo then announces that she'll become her lady-in-waiting, a huge promotion for a girl who hates the spotlight. I mean, she is ugly. Some soldiers begin to drop dead from eating food cooked by the villagers, and soon enough, word gets to Pretty Boy. Gaoshan the Nosy begins to pry into Lady Jokuyo and asks about Mao Mao after doting on the concubine's choice of servants. Jinshi then admits that Mao Mao's knowledge of medicine could be dangerous and resolves to seduce the ugly girl a little to keep her under control. Unfortunately, his first attempt grosses her out. Later on, Hongniang, head lady-in-waiting, introduces herself to Mao Mao and welcomes her to the Jade Pavilion. They say hi to Lady Gyokuyo, and Hongyang shows our girl around. She introduces her to the other ladies-in-waiting, Yinghua, Miss Eager to Please, Guiyuan, the enthusiastic baddie, and Ailan, the soft-spoken cougar. They all refuse Mao Mao from working, claiming that she has a special task to do later. As soon as she leaves, the girls begin to gossip about her, concluding that she came from an abusive home because her hand is bandaged. Later that day, Jinshi tells Mao Mao that her job is to taste Lady Gyokuyo's food for poison, and the freak is happy about it. He tells her that the first taster had nerve damage after eating poison at least twice. Mao Mao expertly examines the first sample and takes a bite before declaring it poison-free. At the brothel, she used to test out poison on her left arm and has grown immune to a lot of them. As I said, freak. Afterwards, she tells the concubine that they should switch from ceramics to silver plates to detect the poison better. Turns out, Jinshi had the same idea and was testing Mao Mao by serving with ceramics. Anyway, Lady Gyokuyo asks why our girl never revealed that she was literate and discovers that she didn't want her pay to increase. She confesses that she was kidnapped and would hate for her abductors to get more money from her. Lady Gyokuyo then crashes a vase on purpose, and they both pretend like it'll be taken from Mao Mao's salary. After their poor acting, she hands our girl the equivalent of her salary, and Mao Mao leaves there motivated. All her efforts to work get thwarted, and Mao Mao gets bored of just food tasting twice a day. She finally gets summoned, only to find out that it's Pretty Boy who needs her. She's still disgusted by him, and he begins to doubt his charm. Anywho, he gives her some buns to taste test, and she reveals that they're laced with an aphrodisiac after smelling them. She mocks Jinshi, and Lady Gyokuyo laughs till she cries. He then changes the topic, asking about the fallen soldiers who had been poisoned by barbarians. After listing the symptoms, Mao Mao easily demonstrates that even flowers in the palace can cause said symptoms, just like the wood the soldiers were burning. Pretty Boy gets intrigued and moves to ask if Mao Mao can make an aphrodisiac. This excites her too much. She then calms herself and admits that she can do it if given the time and ingredients. The emperor had put Jinshi in the rear garden to test the loyalty of his concubines, but he can only think of how Mao Mao continues to look down on him. The next day, she sets off to the medicine room and meets the quack physician and grumpy Gaoshan at the entrance. Her eyes light up when she sees herbs, and begins to prance around the room. She gets everything she asks for, and her fellow servants snoop on what she's doing. Hongyang screams them back to work. Mao Mao gets to work, and in no time, she prepares the aphrodisiac Jinshi needed. She has some sauce left over and makes it into brownies, abandoning them at the workstation. On her way to announce the completion, she gets carried away by some medicinal herbs, and when she returns, all three ladies-in-waiting become ladies in heat. After getting an earful from Hongyang, she presents the aphrodisiac to Jinshi, warning him that it's 3 times more effective than the usual ones. Anyway, Lady Gyokuyo freaks out after hearing this and quietly walks away, leaving Jinshi and Mao Mao alone. Pretty Boy whispers into her ear, and our girl freezes up. She quickly regains herself after he leaves, though. Lady Fuyo is acting like Michael Jackson from that Thriller video when a servant screams thinking she's a spirit. Ailan, Guiyuan, and Yihuan gossip and banter until Guiyuan leaves to clean up the kitchen. She meets Mao Mao making a cold remedy, but gets sidetracked into pitying her after seeing the bandage on her hand. She then mentions the spirit that has been haunting the palace at night. Mao Mao seeks out a reliable source, and Xiaolan, the rumor peddler, tells her that it's even old news. She then reveals that the spirit had been seen around the eastern castle walls. Just by analyzing the situation, Mao Mao pushes Xiaolan to tears. She asks what to do when she sees the spirit, but Mao Mao is convinced that it's just a rumor. She then heads to the medicine room, where the physician is now nicer to her. He offers her tea and biscuits, but before our girl can have any, Pretty Boy creeps up on her and asks for some. As the physician goes to get it, she wonders what Jinshi's problem is and why he has so much freedom. She just concludes that he must be the emperor's favorite at night, and Pretty Boy intrudes her thoughts to ask if she's thinking inappropriately. The physician returns with treats, only to get sent back again. While he's away, Jinshi brings up the haunting, and Mao Mao dismisses it until he suggests that it could be sleepwalking. Pretty Boy asks if she can make medicine for that, but she claims she can't. He pulls in closer, attempting to use his charm, but successfully disgusts our girl into promising to find a cure. Gaoshun leads her to the eastern wall, where she's transfixed by Lady Fuyo dancing under the moonlight. One wouldn't know how sick she was just by looking, but they head to the physician the next day for the full story. He reveals that she's been a shut-in concubine for 2 years and has never been touched by the emperor. Her sleepwalking all began from the shock that she would be a reward to one of his generals. Mao Mao weighs all the facts and decides to visit Lady Fuyu. Instead of visiting, she and Gaoshun spy on her, and our girl confirms that she's just like the cotton rose, which changes its appearance overnight. She then returns to the rumor peddler for more information, but Xiaolan says that Lady Fuyo is originally from the north. An idea brews in Mao Mao's mind, and she takes it to Lady Gyokuyo and Jinshi. She tells them a tale of a courtesan who had been talented and started to act possessed at night after getting an offer to be bought by a wealthy merchant. Miraculously, she got better after the offer was rescinded. The merchant had been a grandpa, and Mao Mao implies that the courtesan pretended because she didn't want him. From then on, Lady Fuyu was no longer allowed to leave her room and even had eunuchs mounted at her door until the day she was to be bestowed. Lady Gyokuyo notices how downtrodden our girl has been since she told the story, and on that day, Mao Mao opens up about the general being Lady Fuyo's childhood friend. He hadn't found any other way to get a princess's hand in marriage, so when the king offered him a price for his valor, he insisted on Lady Fuyu. Mao Mao deduces that she never wanted to be touched in the first place, and her plan worked perfectly. Lady Fuyo walks up to the gate, and they open it to reveal the general. He kneels quietly, and as they approach the carriage, Lady Gyokuyo asks if she's terrible for envying the new bride. Mao Mao eases her conscience, telling her that anyone would envy how beautiful and free Fuyo looked that night on the east wall. Meanwhile, Lady Fuyu and her long-lost booty call share a mushy embrace inside the carriage. Our girl get her lights almost punched out for being too ugly. I'm kidding. Some ladies-in-waiting accuse her of feeding Lady Lihua some low-grade food. Mao Mao didn't say a word because she never wanted to be in the Crystal Pavilion to begin with. She just packed her shit and left. The emperor had come to her because of her looks. Yeah, I'm kidding again. Anyway, he and Lady Gyokuyo watched as Mao Mao tasted for poison, and afterwards, the emperor asked our girl to cure Lady Lihua. That was the only reason she had come by the Crystal Pavilion, but the ladies-in-waiting still kick her out. She goes for lunch with Xiaolan and heads to the kitchen after that to prepare a meal that can help Lady Lihua's health. Unfortunately, the dumbest servants in the world kick her out again. She tries a third time and witnesses the small banquet the ladies want to feed Lihua. She watches them scamper when the concubine can't eat it, but they end up blaming it on her presence and kick our girl out like she's a rugby ball during extra time. This time, Pretty Boy and Grumpy watch from behind a pillar nearby. As Mao Mao pities herself, she runs into Jinshi, who mocks her for running out of time. He then draws close enough to get Lady Lihua's ladies-in-waiting talking. Afterwards, Pretty Boy uses his face to confuse them ladies, and voila, Mao Mao is getting access to her patient. She tries to feed her some gooey stuff, but she has a hard time swallowing. As she coughs up, Mao Mao wipes her chin and discovers that someone has been putting the white powder on the concubine's face. Our girl goes haywire on the lady-in-waiting and slaps her into Obito's universe. She brings her back just to drag her across the room and dump the remaining white powder on her. Mao Mao stares her in the eyes and lists out the ways this servant is going to die, leaving her in tears. From then on, all of Lady Lihua's servants began to fear our flat-chested protagonist. She fed the patient rice water, ventilated the whole place, and used the servants any chance she got. Over time, the patient ate more, so the diet improved, the servant with the powder served time, and the eunuch in charge of getting rid of it got his ass whooped, literally. Our girl gets very tired, and Pretty Boy gets her some hot buns which she eats joyfully. He then asks what she wants, and Mao Mao requests for a steam bath under the guise of the patient needing to sweat. Lady Lihua finally wakes up, and the first thing the ungrateful wench asks is why Mao Mao didn't let her die. Our girl just tells her to stop eating, but apparently the wench wants to live. She readies the steam bath, and Li Hao gets her sweat on, From then on, it's care after care, which stresses the hell out of Mao Mao. The powder servant gets released from juvie and offers to take Mao Mao's place while she rests. 2 months later, and Lady Lihua is prancing around the pavilion sniffing on flowers. Mao Mao grows to respect her and vice versa. She even pets our girl's head as she sleeps. Mao Mao finally announces that she'll be leaving, and Lady Lihua is more worried about still looking sexy in the eyes of the king. Our girl drops some wisdom after complimenting her bosom and whispers it in Lihua's ears. Apparently, it's some advice Mao Mao had gotten from the prostitutes she used to live with. Our girl returns to Lady Gyokuyo, and all the servants hound her for the latest gossip. Pretty Boy isn't bold enough, so he just peeks from the doorway, while Gao Shun looks at him with pity. Some dude stays screaming that he's cursed, but the producers don't give a damn. Yet. Back at the rear garden, Jinshi spars with Basin of the Ma clan, and they clash wood until Basin gives up. While Pretty Boy is getting his body wiped, he asks Gao Shun for an update on Mao Mao, and he tells him that she has regained some weight. Mao Mao is the only one excited to see some mushrooms. She even plans to keep it a secret from everyone else. Don't want these girlies getting high now, do we? She ends up sharing a meal with the rumor peddler, and Xiaolan tells her a rumor about herself. Apparently, word about the aphrodisiac she gave Jinshi got out, and people misinterpreted it as her winning him over. Later on, Mao Mao visits the physician and shows him the Matsutake shrooms. He too gets excited, and they prepare it together. All our girl needed was an accomplice, and she got it. Their high gets interrupted by the same dude who thought he was cursed. He shows them his rashes, and Mao Mao springs to make him an ointment. He explains how he was burning trash and forgot to add Donald Trump. Sorry, couldn't help myself. Anyway, he found some writing tablets and a dress, and when he burned them, the flames changed colors, so bro thought he was cursed. Mao Mao proves him wrong by changing the color of a flame she created and hands him the ointment to go and be stupid no more. Jinshi then drops by, making the physician blush and offer to get some tea. Before he returns, Pretty Boy tries his charm on Mao Mao, but she's still immune. He then gets her to follow him. He asks her about colored wood tablets, and she speaks on it to the best of her knowledge, which isn't much anyway. Afterwards, Jinshi tells her how he likes his shrooms, surprising Mao Mao that he knew all along. When she leaves, he asks Gao Shun to gather everyone with burns on their arms. Mao Mao wonders what colored wood is for, but quickly dismisses it because it's not her business. She returns to the pavilion to meet new boxes of clothes. Guiyuan makes her try one as she narrates how the emperor throws a garden party twice a year. He's not yet married and has no empress escort either, so the upper first-rank concubines are the contenders for empress escort. They include ladies Gyokuyo, Lihua, Lishu, and Aduo, respectively. Mao Mao gets told that she must come, and the thought of Jinshi being there grosses her out. Guiyuan, on the other hand, is overenthusiastic. She thinks it's a battle of the ages and announces that they must conquer Troy. She then suggests patting up Mao Mao's chest and hips. Heaven knows she needs it. Hell, even I know. Our girl heads to the kitchen to make some healthy candy and gets ambushed by Hong Niang. Mao Mao shows her her undergarments that she had made for the cold, and Hong Niang wants her to make one for all of them. Jinshi and Gao Shun want one too. Mao Mao had unlocked the god-level Sifu because even the emperor's cook and tailor track her down to learn her ways. She finally rounds up her sewing a day to the garden party, and the D-Day arrives. If Gyokuyo wasn't a concubine, one would mistake her for a mermaid. She looks so pretty, and all the ladies in waiting can't hide it. She then shares ornaments for each of them, and the other servants hold Mao Mao down to do her makeup. It turns out she's been faking her freckles this whole time, and the ladies in waiting get the shock of their lives when they wipe her face. Pretty Boy goes around checking on the 4 upper concubines, and he too gets confused when he sees Mao Mao without her freckles. She's left to explain how she had put dried clay on her face long before the palace so that she wouldn't become a target for bad men with tempers or venereal diseases. So all this while, she's been ugly on purpose, but still got kidnapped. Pretty Boy sympathizes with her and apologizes for her past. He holds her gaze subtly and hands her a very manly hairpin. She swipes off his hand, though, leaving him to walk away. The other ladies-in-waiting hound her, and Lady Gyokuyo tells her that she cannot be her servant alone. Drums begin to roll and ladies begin to dance. They all then take their seats as the garden party begins.